Starting friendships and engaging in small talk isn't the easiest thing to do for everyone. For others, getting to talk to one person in a party is a feat of its own, and for some, it's a piece of cake. But how does someone engage in a successful conversation with a stranger or acquaintance? Well, author Debra Fine will teach us the techniques, tips, and tricks needed for us to start conversations and effectively bring new people into our networks. Here are the top 7 lessons from The Fine Art of Small Talk by Debra Fine. Lesson 1. Engaging in small talk is okay. Sometimes we read on the internet that other people would rather talk about the galaxy, their dreams, passions, and fears with someone they like, rather than have to small talk. This is because a lot of people see small talk as inferior to a real conversation and an absolute waste of time. However, one can never move to long conversations without small talk. It lets us break the ice and lay the groundwork for stronger relationships. One can't really get to know the other if you don't even know the basic information like their name and job. Lesson 2. Take the risk. Many hesitate to approach other people they may find intimidating or out of their league. We've also become so used to our individuality that we'd rather respect other people's space and leave them alone instead of sitting next to them and striking up a conversation. However, if we want to engage in small talk, we can't always expect other people to make the first move. It's up to us to take the risk and walk up to them. One tip the author gives is to always begin the conversation with a smile, then say a few words and make sure to maintain eye contact. Sometimes not taking the risk in introducing ourselves can lead to more uncomfortable events. Let's look at the experience of the author. She always attended multiple parties at her friend's company. There, she always observed Bob, a senior vice president, and never drew up the courage to introduce herself. But when the time came and she had to phone Bob to give him a sales pitch, Bob cut her off and said that he was astounded that she was calling him, even though she was a snob for never approaching him in those parties. Sometimes our fear can be misinterpreted, so make sure to reach out and say hi to people when we can. Lesson 3. Don't forget the name. Since we've already established how to start a conversation, now we must learn the most important rule in having conversations. Learn their name. Whenever we introduce ourselves, we should also make sure to catch the names of the person we're talking to. After they say their name, it's best to repeat their name in a greeting. For example, "It's great to meet you, Debra." The common mistake people make during these introductions is to concentrate so much on their replies that they forget the other person's name. One thing to remember is to never bluff or fake your way out of the situation. Instead, be honest and apologetic about forgetting their name and ask for it again. And after crossing the hiccup, the both of you can continue the conversation more comfortably. Lesson 4. Use icebreakers. Of course, conversations don't end after introductions, and we'd have to keep them going. This is where icebreakers can come in handy. These can be used to make the conversation flow easily. However, we must be careful when using statements, since these may never get an answer. In lieu of this, try including open-ended questions like, "It's a really great day. How are you feeling today?" Or "Happy Monday. How was your weekend?" These are more likely to spur conversations than the usual "It's a beautiful day out there" statement. On the other hand, it's important to check the situation and gauge if it's appropriate to ask open-ended questions. If the other person also changes the subject after you ask a question, take it as a cue to leave the topic alone and to respect your conversation partner instead. Lesson 5. Listen. In every conversation, one gets a chance to listen and speak. An issue with us humans is that we're easily distracted. When this happens, we start to listen to other conversations, observe our surroundings, or have our thoughts drift away. While doing all these, we usually miss vital information said by the person we're talking to. Surely, if we were in their shoes, we wouldn't feel the best. We all know the frustration of talking to someone who seems that they aren't paying attention. This may be due to them checking their phone, not maintaining eye contact, or crossing their arms. These nonverbal communication cues are also important parts of conversation. Hence, it's also important for us to keep our body language in check. You might be listening, but different body movements may suggest otherwise to the person we're talking to. Movements like fidgeting, crossing your arms, putting hands on the hips, and glancing away may signal to the other person that we're uninterested in not listening. We should also add verbal cues like nodding and briefly replying that we're still with them. And if we're ever bored of the topic, we can always change it. Lesson 6. Avoid awkward silences. It's natural to come across awkward pauses in conversations. To minimize these, one must prepare a list of questions that can save the exchange whenever things are starting to dry up. You could bring up the most recent film, the latest meme, or even talk about a book you've recently finished. It's also difficult to have small talk with acquaintances we meet every now and then. We can't really reuse our set of questions on them. Instead, we can ask for updates on specific aspects of their lives. Let's say the last thing they shared with you was planning a vacation to Europe. Try hitting off the conversation with that topic. Although this might backfire on you since the vacation may not have pushed through. This is why it'll also help to phrase questions in a more generic manner, to let the other person tell you the details. If thinking of conversation starters is still difficult, try instilling the acronym FORM, family, occupation, recreation, and miscellaneous in your mind. Another key in keeping up conversations is to be genuinely interested in what the other person has to say. If not, then the conversation is doomed. Lesson 7. Exit conversations gracefully. It's sometimes difficult to exit conversations. Whether it's because you really have to go or are trying to escape a dreadful conversation, it's important to keep in mind that one should exit conversations gracefully. To do this, begin by circling back to the conversation topic and squeeze your need to leave somewhere in there. Even though you're starting to feel the urge to exit the conversation quickly, one should always do so carefully and respectfully. Some lines such as, "I need to check on a few other persons," "I promised my client I'd talk to her before I leave," or "I'd like to check the exhibit before it gets too late," are good ways to excuse oneself. Remember, it's important to leave a good lasting impression on our acquaintances to make good connections and friendships. In conclusion, this book shows us that it takes a lot of effort and practice to freely engage in small talk, but with the help of the book, we learn that we must check all the social cues, prepare lines, and remember things like the person's name, while ensuring that we're listening and showing the correct body language. Although it's a lot of work, engaging in small talk leads to meaningful conversation, which will then hopefully lead us to good relationships and networks. Do you find pleasure in small talk? Tell me in the comments section. Thank you for listening. If you like the book summary and you want to see more in this category, please like and subscribe so I can create more. You can also get a free copy of the entire audiobook by clicking the link in the description. Until next time.